Well, welcome to Five Questions. Today we have Michael Whitworth with us, and he's going to answer five questions about Bible class. But before we get into that, Michael, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
I am I tell people that I'm the founder and owner and janitor of Start to Finish. We're a web media and book publishing company based in Fort Worth, Texas. I spent 12 years in local work, mainly as pulpit minister in Tennessee and in Texas. But for about the last 3 years, I have been the instructor for a seminar that is a training seminar for Bible class teachers, and more recently have also added a seminar on grief. And that's kind of what I'm doing now full time, in addition to a couple of other things. But my wife Sarah and I, we've got two girls, Audrey and Michaela, and got a third on the way in July. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah, and so you kind of go all over the United States and do these seminars. You've also written multiple books.
Yes. So about 7 years ago, I published my first book in a series that I hope I can complete if the Lord will allow me to live long enough. But I want to write a guide to all of the books of the Bible. So far, I've written guides on Genesis, Daniel, Thessalonians, Ruth, Obadiah, Jonah, 1st, 2nd Kings, currently working on Hebrews, and I did a little bit of work also on 1st and 2nd Samuel. But I enjoy doing those. It allows me to really dig into the biblical text in my own time. And so I spend a lot of time writing in that regard. The seminars, as I said, I do those full time. I do about 60 to 65 of those every year at churches all across the country, Washington to Florida to Southern California, and also started doing those internationally as mission work. I've been to New Zealand, Tanzania, and then in August I'll be going to Fiji, working with churches in the mission field to try to improve their Bible class program.
Yeah, and we'll be sure and get your information in the comment section. So if there are some churches out there that would be interested in having you come and do a seminar, then we want to connect you. And I appreciate the work you're doing, and not only with the books, but with the seminars, and you're focusing on our Bible classes, which I think is really important. And so for those who are tuning in right now, why should weekly Bible class be a priority for all families?
I think there are probably several reasons. Obviously, I think that I come from the pulpit, and you're a pulpit minister. But as much as I believe in the power and the importance of the pulpit in the life of the church, I think that we can do more spiritual formation in Bible class than we can through a sermon. People become more biblically literate in Bible class versus just going to worship and listening to the sermon. Oftentimes, you have parents with small children, and in worship they may not can focus enough on the sermon like they want. Whereas in Bible class, maybe the kids in their own class, and then they can really focus. In other words, that Bible class might be the only spiritual instruction they can absorb in a week if they have children sitting next to them in the worship service. I also think that in Bible class, we have the ability to connect emotionally with one another in a way that is not possible in the worship service. I have a lot of friends in the Southern Baptist Church, and obviously they're very big on Sunday school. And in a typical Southern Baptist church, you'll actually have more people attend Sunday school than you will worship. Whereas in the Churches of Christ, that's flipped. The national average for the Churches of Christ of Bible class to worship attendance is about 55 to 65%. If you have 200 for worship, you'll have about 115 to 130 for Bible class. In the Baptist church, that's flipped. Whatever number they have for Sunday school, they'll have 75% stay for worship. If you know a Southern Baptist, you know that their entire social world is their Sunday school class. They do life with their Sunday school class. That tells me that people know how to connect emotionally in a Bible class in a way that's not possible in a worship service. So just from a matter of biblical literacy and spiritual formation, but also assimilation into the life of the body, Bible class is really important for Christians.
Yeah. And one thing I've heard emphasized over and over and over throughout the years is personal Bible study. But one of the things I rarely hear talked about is communal Bible study. And those are
important.
two different things.
I don't believe that God intended us to study the Bible in isolation. And I'm not saying you shouldn't study your Bible in your own personal devotional time. I'm not saying that at all. But particularly, we weren't intended to interpret the Bible in isolation. Left to ourselves, we can come up with some goofy interpretations of the text, or we will tend to focus on what we want to study, and we may not be absorbing the whole counsel of God. And so being a part of a Bible class program is just a really better way to go about developing spiritually. It's sort of like you want to lose weight and get stronger physically and just be in better shape. Well, you can just go to the gym whenever the Spirit moves you, but if you have the means to hire a personal trainer who's not only showing you how to exercise and what to do, but also maybe helping you with your meal plans, obviously that's going to probably give you better results. Well, the same is true for Bible study. If you're always just studying the Bible on your own and that's it, you're not going to get nearly as much out of it as if you were doing it as a part of a group where there's a leader and there's a system, there's a plan, and all of that.
Okay. Well, one of the things that allows for us to have Bible classes is people willing to volunteer and teach. And so, why might someone consider teaching Bible class?
Uh, there's several reasons. Obviously, it will force you to do more study. And so if you're really wanting to bone up on a certain book of the Bible, plan to teach it. If you want just something that will motivate you to continue your own personal study, then become a teacher, because that is going to push you harder to study on your own time and become a better student of the Word. But I think the bigger issue at hand is we have the ability to really impact people to a significant degree, both emotionally and spiritually. We have an opportunity in Bible class to impact people that just simply isn't possible, even for us as preachers preaching in the pulpit. We have a way to touch people's lives in a very powerful way. I share my personal story at the end of every seminar, or at the first session of every seminar, and talk about how that Bible class has literally saved my life. That the lessons that were imparted to me as a little kid, and then in college at the feet of my Bible teachers and my own personal Bible study, that all of that has God has used that to sustain me through some very dark times. Some people know that I lost my dad very early when I was 19, and he was 44. But then about 3 years ago, our son Daniel unexpectedly passed away as well. And when you bury a father and a son by the time you're 30, that can really make life difficult. But the Lord has used the lessons I learned in Bible class, even as a little kid, to sustain me through those very difficult times. And so, as a Bible class teacher, only eternity is going to be able to tell the good that you've done for the glory of God. But you have an ability to really touch people's lives. And for those of us who grew up in Sunday school, grew up in Bible class, there's always that one teacher that really made a difference in our lives, or that maybe the subject matter we could have cared less, but they had a great enthusiasm for the subject, and they made us want to learn more about it simply because of their enthusiasm. So just the ability that we have to impact people as Bible class teachers, I think, is the reason why we should seriously consider doing it.
Yeah, yeah. And so you go around the country and even around the world helping churches improve their Bible classes. So right
Correct.
now, why don't you just give us one thing that teachers can do to improve their classes? If you just had to, kind of whittle it down to what's the most important thing that they could do?
Uh, you know, the, what I tell people to improve their Bible study is to get in the habit of reading the text multiple times. Don't stand up in front of a Bible class and teach a text and you only read it once or twice in your preparation. I encourage them to read 10, 20, 30, 40 times if possible. But that really has to do with Bible study. As far as making the Bible class experience better, I tell them what you need to do is you need to get to know your students. Go out of your way to develop personal relationships with everybody in the class as much as possible. When I was in local work and I was teaching the same Bible class regularly every week, I made it a habit to try and have lunch with various men in my Bible class at least once a week, and just kind of circled around through all of them. And we would just make small talk about things that were going on in our lives, struggles as husbands, as fathers, as businessmen or employees, etc. It made me a better teacher because I had a personal relationship with them. And I'm not learning stuff about them so that I can go in on Sunday morning, let me tell you what Joe's going through right
Yeah.
now. That wasn't the purpose. But obviously, if we have that intimacy, that knowledge of their personal life, and we were developing that camaraderie, that friendship, that brotherhood with our fellow students, then that's going to make us better teachers. Someone told me a long time ago that you can impress someone from a distance, but you can only impact them up close. And I think that's so true. And so I encourage teachers, if they want to make the Bible class experience better, they need to go out of their way to get to know their students, have them, have their families in your home on a regular basis. Do something to develop those relationships outside of the classroom.
Yeah. Well, you've mentioned a little bit earlier about statistics, and we've wrestled with attendance statistics, whether that's morning worship or Sunday evening worship, and even Bible class. What happens to the church if people stop attending Bible class?
So I think that what will happen, obviously you've got issues related to biblical literacy, spiritual formation, but I think the first thing that you're going to see is that there will be a significant breakdown in the interpersonal relationships between members, and you will see some members drift away if there is no Bible class. The reason I say that is I sometimes, because I'm free during the week, the seminars are only on the weekends. Last year I drove a little bit for Uber in Dallas Fort Worth, and it was a really neat experience getting to meet a lot of people that way. When I was in local work, I always dreaded the question, "What do you do for a living?" Because I knew that was going to instantly change the conversation. I don't know what your experience has been with that,
Yeah.
but when people find out that I'm a preacher, if things got real awkward real quick, and the conversation died. And so I wasn't ashamed that I was a minister, but I loathed having that question asked because I knew it was going to kill the conversation. But driving for Uber, people would ask me, do you do this full time or you just do this on the side? Well, I do it on the side. Well, what do you do for a living? I tell them, well, I do training seminars for Bible class teachers at churches. Really? That's a thing? Yeah. I was taking one guy to the airport there in Dallas. We had to fly to San Antonio on business. And he told me this. I will never forget this gentleman. He said, "That is really interesting." He said, "I got to tell you this." He said, I'm Southern Baptist. And 10 years ago, my church, my Baptist church, stopped, they ended their Sunday school program and went exclusively to small groups that met during the week. And he said, for the last 10 years, I have grieved the loss of my Sunday school class because he said there was a group of us guys that had come up in Sunday school ever since we were teenage boys. And at the point where the church had ended their Sunday school program, he said we were all around 50 years old. And over the last 10 years, he said they have all dropped off from attending the church completely. He said, I am the only one left who attends worship on a regular basis. He said, recently my church announced that they were bringing back Sunday school because over the last 10 years they realized that had been a horrible mistake. And if you look at a lot of Baptist churches that jettisoned or downplayed their Sunday school program in favor of small groups, you'll notice now that they're starting to bring it back because they realize that was a bad idea. I'm not saying that small groups are horrible and Bible classes are great. I think there's room for both of them. But
Yeah.
I don't think it should be an either-or proposition. They meet different needs or they serve different needs. They're used to achieve different objectives. And if a church stops having Bible class, they're going to see a breakdown in the relationships between their members, and people are going to just fall off from coming all together because, again, it's in Bible class where people are emotionally connected with one another. Put another way, if there's a couple in our congregation that is attending Bible class every week, I mean, they're there every time the doors are open, and then suddenly they stopped coming all together, we know that something horrible has happened. I mean, there's a big reason they just stopped coming. Whereas if someone's only coming one or two Sunday mornings a month for worship, and that's it, and then suddenly they stop coming, unfortunately, that's usually not really on anybody's radar for a long time. But if we know that, John and Jane Smith are always in Bible class and then suddenly, boom, they stop coming altogether, we know there's a pretty big problem there that needs to be addressed. And so, again, people get connected to one another emotionally in Bible class. And if you don't have Bible class, that's not happening. People aren't growing connected with one another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how has teaching Bible class and attending Bible class improved your spiritual life?
I think that Bible class, and especially if you are a minister, Bible class forces you to dig down deeper into the text. Oftentimes we will, in our sermons, focus more on themes or topics. Certainly many of us preach expository sermons, but there's something about Bible class that forces us to dig down deeper into the text and to also reflect more on application. And the one great thing about teaching a Bible class is that you are always also a student, whether it be preparing the lesson ahead of time or learning from the students in your class. All of us are teaching classes where there are people in that class older than we are, sometimes much older than we are, and they have a lot of wisdom to share. And so being the teacher in the class doesn't rule you out as a student either. There's, hardly a week will go by that someone doesn't make a comment that you think, I hadn't thought of it that way, and it gives you something to chew on for the rest of the week. It changes your perspective on a particular issue or a particular text, a particular verse. So just from the standpoint of it forcing you to be a better student, and iron sharpening iron in that Bible class experience, I think teaching a Bible class is going to be great for your spiritual development. Now, that said, it can also have a negative impact on your spiritual development. This is something I cover at the end of the first seminar. If you are only studying the Bible for your Bible class lesson and never studying the Bible for your personal benefit, it's going to have a negative impact on your spiritual development, because you'll learn to study the Bible for everyone else's benefit but your own. You'll read a passage and think, I hope Brother Smith is in class tomorrow. He really needs to hear that. And so I encourage teachers to actually study something that you don't plan on teaching anytime soon. If you're teaching Ephesians on Sunday morning, you need to be studying something completely different in your own personal time. So certainly we get the benefit of personal study as we prepare for our lessons. But if we're not careful, that can have a negative impact on us. And certainly you as a preacher and other preachers that might be watching this, we know how dangerous it is to only study the Bible when we're preparing for a lesson. We need to also be into the Word from a personal, devotional standpoint, and it can't really be something we plan on teaching anytime soon. And so it can help your spiritual life. It can also hurt your spiritual life if you do it the wrong way.
Yeah, well, that's great.